In a world that prizes speed, where individuals hurry past one another without so much as a shared glance, and where quietness is often mistaken for a void, a single man made the choice to pause and truly perceive another person. He felt the urgent pull to keep moving, yet an undeniable force compelled him to stay. In that solitary act of empathy, he was about to learn that kindness is not merely an act that alters lives. It is an agent of complete transformation. The corridors of Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 3 were a maelstrom of human activity. Marcus Vance, a tall black man with kind eyes that were currently shadowed by exhaustion, navigated the dense river of travelers. His shoulder ached from the weight of his carry-on, and his mind felt frayed from 3 days of insufficient sleep and immense professional pressure. A quick glance at his phone confirmed his anxiety. 5:17 p.m. His flight home to Midway was set to board in less than 15 minutes, from a gate on the far side of the concourse. He had made a solemn promise to his daughter, Zoe. Before he'd left for New York, she had locked her small pinky finger around his, her hands forming the careful, deliberate signs. "Promise, Daddy, you'll be home for pizza and pajamas, night." The trip to New York had been an unmitigated failure. He'd spent 3 grueling days presenting his architectural concepts to a panel of investors who had offered polite smiles and the classic non-committal phrase, "We'll be in touch." It was a corporate platitude everyone understood as a gentle but firm rejection. Now, weaving past a crowded smoothie stand, he narrowly avoided a collision with a man in a rumpled suit who was jabbing furiously at his phone screen, oblivious to his surroundings. No one made eye contact. Each person existed within their own pressurized bubble of purpose, consumed by their private worlds, their personal struggles, their final destinations. It was in that moment of weary observation that he saw her. She was an elderly woman, seated by herself near gate K12, a picture of refined elegance in a tailored camel hair coat. Her salt and pepper hair was coiffed in a sophisticated style that spoke of both affluence and a meticulous attention to detail. Yet her eyes betrayed a narrative starkly different from her polished appearance. They were wide with a mixture of confusion, frustration, and a rapidly escalating sense of panic. A torrent of people flowed around her, treating her like an immovable stone in a rushing stream. She was trying desperately to capture someone's attention, her hands moving in the clear, articulate motions of American Sign Language. She was asking for assistance, but the world was moving too fast to notice. A young woman in athletic wear, earbuds firmly in place, strode past with her gaze fixed on her phone. A family wrestling with a mountain of luggage on a cart rolled by without a flicker of acknowledgement. A gate agent, his focus narrowed to the manifest on his clipboard, hurried past her without a second look. Marcus felt his hurried pace begin to falter. He knew he should keep going. His own gate was in a different concourse. He had only 10 minutes left. If he paused now, he risked missing his flight, missing pizza night with Zoe, breaking the pinky swear promise he held so sacred. The elderly woman's hands moved again, the gestures becoming more frantic. Her gaze swept across the indifferent crowd, a silent plea for anyone who might comprehend, for anyone who might simply see her. Marcus stopped walking. He pivoted, his decision made in a heartbeat. He approached her cautiously, not wanting to alarm her. When he was a few feet away, he gently set down his bag, and with hands that were steady and practiced from years of daily use, he signed, "Hello, I see you're looking for help. I can understand you." The change that washed over her face was instantaneous and profound. A wave of pure relief smoothed the lines of worry from her brow, and her eyes, those frightened and desperate eyes, suddenly welled with tears. Her own hands flew up, signing with a speed born of pent-up emotion. "Thank you, oh thank you. I was so afraid. I thought no one could see me, my flight." They changed the gate. I heard the vibration of the announcement, but I couldn't. I can't. Marcus sat on the armrest of the seat next to her, his own flight momentarily banished from his mind. He signed back, his movements deliberately calm and reassuring. "It's all right. Take a deep breath. I'm here to help. My name is Marcus." "Isabella Ignaprer," she signed, her hands still trembling slightly. "Isabella Rojas. I'm trying to fly to Miami. My daughter was supposed to be here to help me, but I can't reach her on the phone. And then they announced a gate change. I don't know where I'm meant to go, and everyone just keeps—" Her hands faltered, dropping into her lap. She looked down at them, and Marcus witnessed a flicker of defeat in her posture, the unique brand of exhaustion that arises from feeling utterly invisible while surrounded by a multitude of people. "Everyone just keeps walking by," Marcus signed gently, completing her sentence. She gave a small, defeated nod as a single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. Marcus felt a familiar pang in his chest, an ache he knew all too well. He had seen this exact feeling manifest in the person he loved most in the world. 4 years ago, his ex-wife, overwhelmed and frustrated, had called their daughter a limitation before walking out of their lives for good. Zoe had been just 2 years old at the time, born profoundly deaf, and was, in Marcus's eyes, the most remarkable human being he had ever known. But his ex-wife had been unable to perceive that. She had only seen the obstacles, the deviation from the norm, the ways in which Zoe didn't conform to the hearing world she had anticipated. In the wake of her departure, Marcus had resolved to become Zoe's bridge. He had dedicated himself to mastering American Sign Language, starting with clumsy fingerspelling of the alphabet and late-night YouTube tutorials, gradually advancing to fluent, nuanced conversations and a deep appreciation for deaf culture. He attended community workshops, cultivated friendships within the local deaf community, and came to understand that silence was not a deficiency or an emptiness. It was simply a different kind of fullness, and he had watched, time and time again, as the hearing world treated his beautiful, clever 6-year-old daughter as if she were made of glass, as if her voice held no weight, simply because it was expressed through her hands instead of her mouth. "Isabella," Marcus signed, pulling his focus back to the present moment in the bustling terminal. "Let me help you. What is your flight number?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, composing herself. "Miami, flight 1882. It was supposed to depart from this gate, K-12, but they made an announcement and everyone started moving." Marcus pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen as he accessed the airport's flight information. "Okay, I see it. They've moved it to gate G19. The departure time was also moved up. They're in the final boarding process right now." Isabella's face went pale. "Now? But how will I ever make it?" "I will take you," and Marcus signed with conviction. "Come on, we can get there." He helped her to her feet and gathered her belongings, a fine leather carry-on, a designer handbag, and the expensive coat that had slipped from the seat. He offered her his arm, and they began to move as quickly as they could, Marcus expertly steering them through the throng while keeping one hand free to continue their signed conversation. "How long were you waiting there?" he asked as they navigated the crowded walkway. "Nearly 45 minutes, she signed back, her expression a mixture of gratitude and lingering dismay. "I kept hoping my daughter would call or that a gate agent would notice I needed help, but everyone was in such a rush. I started to feel like a ghost." "You are not a ghost," Marcus signed with a firm, reassuring pressure on her arm. "You are here, you are real, and you deserve to be seen." They reached a moving walkway and stepped on, the automated path carrying them toward the G concourse. Isabella's hands were steadier now, her breathing more even. She looked at Marcus with an expression of gentle curiosity. "Why do you know sign language, if you don't mind my asking?" She signed. A tightness formed in Marcus's throat. "I have a daughter. Her name is Zoe. She's 6, and she was born deaf." A wave of understanding washed over Isabella's face, followed by something deeper, a sense of recognition, of shared experience. "Then you know, Hakort Fritzi ta oprar," signed, her eyes filled with a profound empathy. "You know what it's like, to be treated as if you are not fully present." "I've seen it happen to her more times than I can count," over Marcus signed, a muscle in his jaw tightening at the memory. "And it breaks my heart because she is the most incredible kid I've ever met. She's brilliant and hilarious and sees the world with a creativity that makes me wish I could experience it her way. But people look right through her. They act as if her silence makes her less, like she's just part of the background of their hearing world." They stepped off the walkway and hurried down another long corridor. Gate G19 was now visible in the distance, a small crowd still lingering near the boarding door. "You are a good father," Isabella signed, her gaze soft and sincere. "I try my best," he replied. "I just wish more people would try to understand. Silence isn't an empty space. It's not a void. It has its own richness, its own voice, if you just take a moment to listen with your eyes." They arrived at Gate G19 just as the agent was making the final boarding call for Flight 1882 to Miami. Marcus quickly checked Isabella's boarding pass, confirming it was the correct flight. "Thank you," Isabella signed, her hands enclosing both of his in a gesture of immense gratitude. "Thank you for seeing me, for stopping. Most people—" Her signed words, a visual voice, seemed to break with emotion. "Most people look right through me, as if I'm just a piece of furniture, as if I'm nothing." "You are not nothing," Marcus signed back fiercely, meeting her gaze. "You are someone's mother, someone's friend. You are a person who matters. Don't ever let the world's indifference convince you otherwise." Isabella nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. She reached into her handbag and retrieved a thick, cream-colored business card. She pressed it firmly into his palm, holding his hand for a moment with an intense, meaningful look. Warren glanced down. The card was heavy, the lettering elegant and embossed. "Isabella Rojas, mother of Camila Rojas, CEO, Rojas and Sterling Architectural Group." His breath caught in his throat. Rojas and Sterling. He knew that name. Every architect in the country knew that name. They were one of the most prestigious, forward-thinking firms in the nation, based in Miami, renowned for their innovative designs that consistently pushed the boundaries of aesthetics and functionality. He looked up at Isabella, his expression one of pure shock, but she was already signing again. "My daughter, Camilla, she needs to know about this, about you. Please, call her, tell her what happened. She will want to thank you properly." "Isabella, that's not necessary. I don't need—" "Please," she interrupted, her hands emphatic. "For me, she will want to know." She paused, her expression growing thoughtful. "My daughter, she understands what it means to see people. She had to. Growing up with a deaf mother taught her. She built her entire company on the principle that the world should be designed for everyone, not just for the hearing majority." The gate agent called Isabella's name. She squeezed Marcus's hand one last time, signed a profound "Thank you." That transcended any spoken language, and then disappeared down the jetway. Marcus stood frozen for a moment, the heavy cardstock a tangible weight in his hand, as the final boarding call for his own flight to Midway crackled over the PA system. He bolted. He sprinted through the concourse, his bag banging against his back, his lungs burning. He made it to his gate with less than 2 minutes to spare, collapsing into a seat just as the flight attendants were securing the cabin door. His heart hammered against his ribs, a cocktail of adrenaline and astonishment coursing through him. He kept staring at the business card, half expecting it to vanish. Camila Rojas, CEO of Rojas and Sterling. Throughout the short flight back to Chicago, his mind replayed the encounter. He had done a simple thing, helped an elderly woman find her gate. It was a basic act of human decency that shouldn't have felt so momentous, but in the context of the indifferent crowd, it clearly was. And now, because of it, he held a direct line to one of the most influential figures in his field. But that wasn't the thought that lingered. What truly stuck with him was the look in Isabella's eyes when she'd signed. "Everyone just keeps walking by." He recognized that hollowed-out resignation, the specific kind of pain that comes from being rendered invisible, not because you're absent, but because others actively choose not to see you. His thoughts turned to Zoe. He remembered the time they were in the grocery store when she was 5. She had politely tried to ask a stock clerk where the gluten-free pasta was, her small hands forming the signs with care. The clerk had glanced right past her and looked at Marcus. "What's she want?" he'd asked, as if Zoe were an inanimate object, as if her question was invalid because of the language she used to ask it. The surge of hot, protective anger Marcus had felt in that moment was immediate, but he had suppressed it, offered a tight-lipped smile, and translated for his daughter. All the while, Zoe had stood there, her little shoulders slumping as she learned another painful lesson about how the world would not always make an effort to see her. Now, at 30,000 feet, Marcus looked at Isabella Rojas's business card and made a choice. He would call, not because he was seeking a favor from Camila Rojas, though his small, struggling firm could certainly use a lifeline, but because Isabella had asked him to, because she had recognized something significant in the moment they shared, and because maybe, just maybe, there were more people in the world like her. Daughter, people who understood what it meant to truly see. Marcus's apartment was modest, but filled with the unmistakable warmth and cheerful chaos of life with a young child. Zoe's vibrant drawings were held by magnets on the refrigerator door, stacks of picture books occupied the coffee table, and a basket of clean laundry sat waiting patiently to be folded. When he walked through the door at 6:45 p.m., just a little late for pizza and pajamas night, Zoe catapulted herself off the sofa and into his arms, her small frame wrapped around his waist in a fierce hug, and she pulled back to sign with rapid-fire excitement. "You're home! You kept your promise! I missed you! I missed you!" Marcus crouched down to her level, a wide smile spreading across his tired face as he signed back. "I missed you too, little bug. More than you can imagine. How was school today?" They chatted while Marcus preheated the oven for the pizza. Zoe's hands were a blur of motion as she recounted her day, the new colors she used in her art project, how her best friend Leo had shared his fruit snacks with her at lunch, and how she had learned the sign for caterpillar, which she then demonstrated with dramatic flair. He watched her, his eyes following every nuance of her story. He listened with his gaze, in the way she had taught him to listen, and his heart swelled with a love so profound it made all the other concerns, the rejected proposals, the mounting bills, the bone-deep exhaustion, fade into insignificant background noise. After dinner, as Zoe sat at the kitchen table coloring with a new set of markers, Marcus took out Isabella's business card and stared at it. "What's that?" Zoe signed, her attention drawn from her drawing of a purple and orange caterpillar. Marcus explained what had happened. He told her about the elegant older woman at the airport, how she had been lost and scared because she was deaf and no one would stop to help her. Zoe's expression grew serious. She put down her marker and signed, "Like how people ignore me sometimes." A familiar tightness constricted Marcus's chest. "Yeah, sweetie, just like that." "But you stopped," she continued, her small face resolute. "You helped her because you're a good daddy, you see people." "I learned from the very best," Marcus signed back, gently tapping the tip of her nose. She giggled, a bright, soundless expression of joy. Then she asked, "Are you going to call the lady's daughter?" "I'm not sure," Marcus admitted, signing his uncertainty. "Should I?" Zoe paused, her brow furrowed in deep concentration. Then, with the unwavering confidence that only a 6-year-old can possess, she signed, "Yes, because maybe the daughter needs to know there are good people in the world, and you need to know that I'm proud of you." In that moment, Marcus was convinced that 6-year-olds held a wisdom far greater than the rest of the world combined. 3 days later, while Marcus was hunched over his drafting table, trying to breathe life into a design that felt stale and uninspired, his phone buzzed. The screen showed a number with a Miami area code. He almost let it go to voicemail, but some combination of instinct and curiosity compelled him to answer. "Mr. Vance, this is Camila Rojas. I believe you assisted my mother at O'Hare Airport a few days ago." "I did," Marcus said, his posture straightening. Did she get home all right?" "She did, thanks to you," Camila replied. There was a brief pause, and when she spoke again, her voice had softened, losing some of its corporate edge. "Mr. Vance, my mother told me everything. What you did for her, what you said to her, about silence having its own voice, and about your daughter." Marcus waited, his heart beginning to beat a little faster. "I grew up with a deaf mother," Camila continued, her voice imbued with a quiet intensity. "I have spent my entire life watching the world treat her as if she's an inconvenience, as if she's somehow less than because she experiences life differently. And I've dedicated my career to trying to change that, to building spaces that are designed for everyone, not just for the hearing majority. What you did, most people don't do that. They just walk by." "I only did what anyone should have done," Marcus said quietly. But they don't. That's the entire point, Camilla's voice cracked slightly. My mother came home in tears, Mr. Vance. Not tears of sadness, but of relief. Because for the first time in a very long time, a stranger saw her, truly saw her, and didn't turn away. Marcus's throat felt tight. My mother also mentioned that you're an architect, Camilla went on, her tone shifting, becoming more businesslike, but retaining its underlying warmth. I took the liberty of looking up your firm. Your portfolio is very impressive. Thank you, Marcus managed to say, feeling a flush of surprise. I'd like to discuss a potential collaboration. We're launching a new project here in Miami, a community center designed from the ground up for total accessibility, with a special focus on serving the deaf and hard of hearing community. When my mother told me about you, about your daughter, about your perspective, she paused. Mr. Vance, I have a feeling you might be exactly the voice this project needs. Would you be willing to fly to Miami to discuss it further? Marcus looked around his small office, at the uninspired blueprints on his table, the stack of unpaid invoices on his desk, and the school photo of Zoe, her bright smile beaming at him from its frame. When? He asked. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the sleek, minimalist lobby of Rojas and Sterling in downtown Miami. His portfolio clutched under his arm, he tried to project an air of confidence he didn't entirely feel. The office was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Biscayne Bay, the water shimmering under the Florida sun. The modern furniture was artfully arranged, each piece likely costing more than his car. Original art adorned the walls, exuding a museum-quality prestige. This was the embodiment of success, the kind Marcus had long dreamed of but had never managed to grasp. Mr. Vance, he turned. Camila Rojas was even more striking in person. She was in her early 30s, with the same elegant bone structure as her mother and eyes that were sharp, intelligent, and missed nothing. She wore a perfectly tailored emerald green pantsuit, her dark hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail that was both professional and effortlessly chic. But what struck Marcus most was what she did next. She smiled, and her hands rose to sign. Welcome, I'm Camilla. Thank you for coming. Her signing was not the careful, studied movement of someone who had learned ASL as an adult. It was fluid, natural, native, the easy, expressive grace of a person who had grown up bilingual. In that instant, a knot of tension Marcus hadn't even realized he was holding in his chest completely dissolved. Thank you for the invitation, he signed back, before adding verbally, Your office is incredible. Thank you. We designed it ourselves, of course, she grinned, a spark of humor in her eyes. Can I get you some coffee? Water? Coffee would be fantastic. They settled into a glass-walled conference room overlooking the bay. What had been scheduled as a 1-hour consultation quickly stretched into 3. Camilla unrolled a set of large architectural plans across the polished table, showing him the initial concepts for the community center. Here's what we have so far, she said, speaking and signing simultaneously with an unconscious ease that he found captivating. But I'm not happy with it. It's competent, but it's not right. It's missing something. Marcus leaned over the plans, studying them intently. They were more than competent. They were excellent. The lines were clean, the use of space was intelligent, and all the technical ADA requirements were meticulously met. But he agreed with her. The design lacked a soul. May I? He asked, gesturing toward a pencil lying on the table. Please? For the next hour, they fell into a seamless rhythm of collaboration. Marcus sketched modifications directly onto the prints, and Camilla added her own insights, building on his ideas. It felt less like a high-stakes job interview and more like two artists who spoke the same rare dialect discovering they could create poetry together. Here, Marcus said, pointing to the large central gathering space. This is designed for hearing people, with deaf accommodations added on as an afterthought. What if we inverted the entire concept? What if we designed it from the very beginning for a visual language? What do you mean? Camilla asked, leaning closer. ASL is a visual language. It requires clear sightlines. If you can't see someone's face and hands, you can't understand them. So, gathering spaces for the deaf community need to be fundamentally different. We should use circular or semicircular seating arrangements instead of linear rows. The lighting needs to be different. Bright enough to see signs clearly from a distance, but diffused, not harsh. No backlighting that turns people into silhouettes. We need to use color and contrast on the walls, so that hands of any skin tone are always clearly visible against the background. Camilla's eyes lit up with excitement. Keep going. And things like acoustic dampening are less critical, Marcus continued, gaining momentum, so we can reallocate that part of the budget. We could incorporate more tactile elements into the design, different textures on walls or floors that provide navigational information. We can integrate visual alert systems for things like fire alarms or announcements, but make them beautiful parts of the design, not just ugly boxes stuck on the wall. The entire building should communicate, you belong here, not just, we've made a space for you. Yes, Camilla breathed, her voice filled with discovery. That's it. That's exactly what I've been struggling to articulate. They looked at each other across the table, and a current of understanding passed between them, the rare and profound intimacy of being truly understood by someone who just gets it. Most hearing architects, Camilla signed, switching entirely to ASL as if it were their more natural shared language. Design for a hearing world and then tack on accessibility features to meet a code. They treat it like a checklist. But I want to create spaces that are born from a different philosophy, a philosophy that understands silence isn't an empty space. It's just a different kind of fullness. Marcus felt a catch in his throat. She had used almost the exact same words he'd signed to her mother in the airport. That's what I've been trying to do, he signed back. When I design anything now, I think about how Zoe experiences a space. What would she need? What would make her feel not just included, but celebrated? Tell me about her, Camilla signed gently, so he did. He told her about Zoe's diagnosis as an infant, about his ex-wife leaving, unable to cope with what she perceived as a defect. He spoke of the late nights he'd spent watching YouTube videos to learn how to braid his daughter's hair, the gluten-free recipes he'd had to master for her celiac disease, and the quiet 3 a.m. fears that he would never be enough for her. And he told her about the triumphs, the first time Zoe had spontaneously signed, "I love you, Daddy." The day she started at a school for the deaf and blossomed, the way she found beauty in things he had always overlooked, like the intricate patterns of raindrops on a window or the shifting dance of shadows from a tree, the entire visual poetry of a world she experienced without sound. She sounds extraordinary, Camilla signed, her expression soft. She is, Marcus replied simply. Camilla was quiet for a long moment. Then she signed. My mother is extraordinary too, but she has spent her entire life having to fight just to be seen. I built this company because I was tired of watching her fight. I wanted to build a world where people like her, people like your Zoe, didn't have to struggle just to exist, where the world was built for them from the start. That's a beautiful mission, Marcus signed. It's good business, Camilla replied with a slight wry smile. Universal design is better design. It helps everyone, but yes, it's also personal. Everything I build is for her. Everything. They talked until the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the waters of the bay in brilliant strokes of orange and pink. They talked about design philosophy and childhood memories, about the richness of deaf culture and the many ways the hearing world fell short, about shared dreams and private frustrations and the stubborn hope that things could be better. When Marcus finally left, promising to email detailed design revisions by the end of the week, Camilla walked him to the elevator. This was supposed to be a consultation, she said, an amused smile playing on her lips. I think it evolved into something else. A collaboration, Marcus suggested. A partnership, Camilla corrected, if you're interested. I'm very interested, Marcus said, and he meant it in more ways than one. Over the next 3 months, Marcus's life found a new rhythm, one that pulsed between Chicago and Miami. He flew south every other week, and during his absences, Zoe stayed with Mrs. Diaz, their downstairs neighbor, a warm, grandmotherly woman who adored Zoe and had become a pillar of support for Marcus. The Miami Community Center project became his singular focus, and Rojas and Sterling compensated him more generously than any client he'd ever had. But the money was not the reason he kept returning. In the spaces between their intensive work sessions, he and Camilla talked. Their conversations stretched through long working dinners and late-night calls, meandering from architectural theory to personal histories. He learned that she had spent much of her childhood acting as her mother's interpreter, a bridge to the hearing world. He learned that she had chosen architecture as a tangible way to build a better, more equitable world. He learned that she carried the weight of her mother's happiness on her shoulders, like a sacred responsibility. In turn, she learned that Marcus now measured his life not in calendar days, but in a series of small, hard-won victories. A perfectly executed ponytail, a bedtime story that ended in peaceful sleep, a moment of pure, unadulterated joy on Zoe's face over something simple and beautiful. Every few days, Marcus would video call Zoe from his Miami hotel room. Her hands would fly as she recounted her school day, and increasingly, Camilla would appear in the frame beside him. It started casually, with Camilla stopping by his hotel to drop off revised plans and staying to wave hello to Zoe. Soon, it became an expected part of their routine. Zoe began her calls by signing. "Is Camilla there?" One evening, a package arrived for Zoe from Miami. Inside was a custom-made coloring book, filled with simplified architectural drawings of the community center. A note from Camilla was tucked inside. "Help me design the playground." Zoe's response was immediate and passionate. She spent the entire weekend creating a series of detailed drawings, showing swings and slides and elaborate climbing structures, all designed with careful consideration for sightlines, visual interest, and bright, joyful colors. "She's a genius," Camilla signed to Marcus during their next meeting, Zoe's drawings spread out across the conference table between them. "I'm not just saying that. Look at this," her idea for a spiral slide, with porthole windows cut into the sides. "It's brilliant. It creates a dynamic visual for the kids watching from the ground, while the kid on the slide gets these fun, shifting perspectives of the world outside. We are absolutely building this." Marcus looked at the drawings, at his daughter's careful, imaginative work being treated with such seriousness and respect by one of the top architectural minds in the country. He felt a powerful wave of emotions swell in his chest, a mixture of pride and gratitude so intense it was almost painful. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice thick, "for seeing her." "Thank you for seeing my mother," Camilla replied softly. "For seeing all of us." That night, after a particularly long day of finalizing the design schematics, Camilla invited Marcus to dinner at her home. It was a beautiful Spanish-style house in Coconut Grove, filled with books, vibrant art, and the comfortable, lived-in feeling of a real home. Isabella was there, and her face lit up when she saw Marcus. She signed enthusiastically. "The kind man from the airport. I've heard so much about your wonderful work." Over a delicious meal of homemade paella that Isabella insisted on preparing, Marcus watched the easy, loving rapport between the two women. He saw the shorthand of their signs, the way Camilla anticipated her mother's needs without ever being overbearing, and the deep, unconditional love that flowed between them. It reminded him so much of his own relationship with Zoe, and for the first time in a long time, something in his heart recognized the feeling of home. After dinner, Isabella excused herself for the evening, and Camilla led Marcus out to a lush patio overlooking a garden. "Your mother is an amazing woman," Marcus said. "She is," Camilla agreed. "And she asks about you constantly. When is Marcus coming back? Has he finished the playground designs? What does his daughter think of the project?" Camilla smiled. "I think you made quite an impression on her." She paused. "On both of us." They stood in a comfortable silence for a moment, the warm Miami air filled with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. "Can I tell you something?" Camilla asked, her voice softer now. "Of course. After my mother got home from that trip, after she told me what you did, how you stopped, how you saw her when no one else would, she said something that I haven't been able to get out of my head." She turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting the soft lights of the garden. She said, "That man sees people. He truly sees them." I didn't fully understand what she meant until I met you, until I watched you talk about Zoe and work on these designs, and care so deeply about creating a world where everyone feels seen. Marcus's heart was beating a steady, heavy rhythm in his chest. "I see you too," he said quietly. "I see a woman who built an empire on the principle that every person deserves dignity. Someone who speaks her mother's language as fluently as her own. someone who understands that accessibility isn't about accommodation, it's about respect. He took a small step closer. I see someone I can't stop thinking about, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Someone I fly across the country to see every 2 weeks, and it stopped being just about the project a long time ago. Camilla's gaze held his. When did it stop being just about the project for you? I think, he said, it stopped being about the project the moment you greeted me in sign language. And I realized I wasn't alone in this anymore, that there was someone else in the world who understood. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. A question asked and answered in the same breath. It was full of unspoken promises and the relief of discovery. When they finally pulled apart, Camilla was smiling, her eyes shining. I think, she said, a laugh in her voice, we should probably tell Zoe. Marcus laughed too, a deep, happy sound. I think Zoe already knows. A month later, during Zoe's spring break, Marcus brought her to Miami. He could feel her nervousness in the way her hands fidgeted in her lap during the flight, signing random words to herself as they walked through the airport. What if she doesn't like me? She signed in the back of the taxi on the way to Camilla's office. She already adores you, Marcus assured her. You've been video chatting for months. That's different, Zoe insisted. That's on a screen. What if I'm weird in person? You're not weird, he signed firmly. You're extraordinary, like her dad. Zoe signed back, with the world-weary exasperation that only a 6-year-old can truly perfect. Every parent thinks their kid is extraordinary. When they arrived at the Rojas and Sterling office, Camilla was waiting for them in the lobby. She didn't address Marcus first. Instead, she crouched down to Zoe's level and signed. Hi, Zoe. I am so happy to finally meet you in person. Your playground designs are being built right now. Would you like to come see? Zoe glanced up at Marcus, seeking permission. He nodded, a lump forming in his throat. She turned back to Camilla and signed a shy, okay. They spent the afternoon at the construction site. Camilla had a tiny, custom-ordered hard hat waiting for Zoe, who watched in awe as workers brought the structures she had helped design to life. Every few minutes, she would tug on Marcus's sleeve and sign, her eyes wide with wonder. Dad, look, that's my idea. They're really building it. Later that evening, at dinner, Zoe sat between Marcus and Camilla, chattering animatedly about her school, her friends, and the new book she was reading. Isabella watched from across the table, her expression warm and content, occasionally interjecting a signed comment that made Zoe giggle. As they were getting ready to leave, Zoe tugged on Camilla's sleeve. When Camilla looked down, Zoe signed carefully, her expression serious. Are you my dad's special friend? Marcus felt his face grow warm, but Camilla just smiled and signed back. I would like to be, if that's okay with you. Zoe considered this for a moment, then signed. Can you be my special friend too? I would love that more than anything, Camilla replied. Zoe nodded, satisfied. Then she added, good, because my dad smiles more when he talks about you, and he needs to smile more. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought, as Camilla reached over and squeezed his hand. 6 months after that fateful day at O'Hare, Marcus stood on a stage in the sun-drenched atrium of the completed community center. Zoe's hand was held firmly in his. Camilla stood beside him, and Isabella sat beaming in the front row. The building was magnificent, a symphony of light, space, and thoughtful design. Every single element, from the circular seating in the main hall to the color-contrasted walls, had been meticulously conceived for the people who would use it. The playground, Zoe's playground, was a riot of color and joyful activity, featuring the spiral slide with its porthole windows, where deaf and hearing children were already playing together. The dedication ceremony was conducted simultaneously in ASL and spoken English, with interpreters working seamlessly. The audience was a beautiful, diverse mix of community members, all of them finding a sense of belonging in a building that had been designed with love. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he stood at the podium and began to sign. 6 months ago, I was running through an airport. I was late, I was tired, and I was stressed. I saw someone who needed help, and I almost kept walking. I had 100 reasons to keep going, but something made me stop. He paused, his gaze finding Isabella in the crowd. That one decision, to stop, to see one person who everyone else was ignoring, changed the entire course of my life. It brought me here, to this incredible building, to this community, and to this family. He gestured to Camilla and Zoe. My daughter taught me that silence speaks volumes. She taught me that being deaf is not a deficit. It is a difference, a beautiful, valuable difference. And she taught me that love is the most powerful teacher of all. Because if you truly love someone, you learn their language, all of it. The signs and the silences, the visible and the invisible. From her seat, Zoe signed, "Dad, you're being mushy." A ripple of laughter spread through the room as those who understood ASL translated for those who didn't, filling the space with a shared warmth. My point is, Marcus continued with a smile, we built this center on one simple principle. Everyone deserves to be seen, to have their voice heard, or in this case, to be seen when they speak with their hands, to belong not as an afterthought, but as the primary focus of the design itself. I am so grateful to everyone who made this possible, but especially to Isabella for trusting a stranger in an airport, and to Camila for showing me that the most beautiful partnerships are built in languages most people never bother to learn. After the ceremony, as the community joyfully explored their new space, Camilla squeezed Marcus's hand. "Thank you," and she signed, her eyes shining, "for seeing my mother." Marcus signed back, his heart full. "Thank you for building a world where my daughter will always be seen." Zoe appeared between them, tugging on both of their hands. She signed with an air of great importance. "Can we go see my room now?" "Your room?" Camilla asked, feigning confusion. "The kids' design studio. You promised I could have my own desk there whenever we visit Miami." Camilla and Marcus exchanged a look filled with warmth, understanding, and the promise of a shared future. "Come on," Camilla signed, taking Zoe's other hand. "Let's go see your room." As they walked through the vibrant, bustling center, a new family forged by an act of kindness, Isabella watched them go, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. Marcus thought about time and how he used to measure it in small victories like braided ponytails and finished bedtime stories. He realized he measured it differently now. He measured it in the moment he chose to stop in an airport, in the language he learned for love, and in the spaces they were now building together, not just with steel and glass, but with compassion, understanding, and the radical, life-altering act of truly seeing another human being. The best things in life, Marcus now knew, grew from the moments you chose to abandon your rush, to see the person everyone else ignored, to sign hello to a stranger, and in doing so, discover you were signing hello to your future.